For the better part of a decade, the skies have had one undisputed king, the American F-35 Lightning II. It's the benchmark, the gold standard against which every other combat aircraft is judged. It's a technological marvel of stealth and sensors that has left pretty much everyone else in its shadow. Nations have lined up, checkbooks in hand, spending billions just to get on the waiting list, building their entire air power strategy around this one jet. The F-35 wasn't just a new plane, it was the future of air combat. But what if that future is about to get a challenger, not from a rival superpower, but from a country that, until recently, was mostly a customer for American military gear? Deep in the heart of East Asia, South Korea has been quietly, methodically, and brilliantly building its own answer to the F-35. It's called the KF-21 Boramae, the Hawk. And as of 2026, it's not a paper project or a prototype anymore. It's rolling off the production line and getting ready for delivery to the Republic of Korea Air Force. This isn't just another fighter. This is a declaration of independence. A nation squeezed between giants, China, Russia, and an unstable North Korea, has decided it can't afford to wait in line for someone else's tech. It has decided to build its own. So the question is no longer if South Korea can build an advanced fighter. The real question is, can this new challenger, born from a unique strategic pressure cooker, actually take on the reigning champ? Does the KF-21 have what it takes to disrupt the F-35's global dominance? We're going to break down the history, the tech, and the bold global ambitions of the KF-21 Boramae to find out if the king of the skies should be looking over its shoulder. To really get the KF-21, you can't just look at blueprints. You have to understand the place that built it. South Korea is located in one of the most strategically tense neighborhoods on the planet. To the north, you have a hostile, nuclear-armed state. It's surrounded by the historic and modern powers of Russia and China and its old rival, Japan. For over 70 years, South Korea's very survival has been guaranteed by its alliance with the United States, a partnership forged in the fires of the Korean War. But that alliance came with a dependency. For decades, the backbone of the Republic of Korea Air Force, ROKAF, was made of American planes. Old workhorses like the F-4 Phantom and F-5 Tiger patrolled its skies for generations. They were eventually joined by more capable fourth-gen fighters like the F-16 and the mighty F-15K Slam Eagle. And while these were great planes, they had strings attached. South Korea was a customer, not the creator. It depended on Washington for parts, software updates, and, most critically, for permission to modify its own jets. In a crisis, that reliance is a huge vulnerability. Imagine needing a critical software patch during a conflict, only to be held up by international logistics or political red tape. This quiet frustration started to bubble up in the early 2000s. The South Korean government realized that to truly control its own destiny, it had to master building its own advanced aircraft. This wasn't just about national pride, it was a core strategic necessity. The initial program, then called KF-X, was launched with a bold goal: develop a modern fighter that would not only replace the aging F-4s and F-5s, but would leapfrog existing designs and put South Korea in the exclusive club of high-tech jet producers. The road was long and full of roadblocks. The project officially started in the early 2010s, but full-scale development didn't really kick off until 2015. It was a massively complex undertaking, requiring the entire industrial and academic might of the nation. Over 16 universities, 11 research institutes, and more than 550 private companies were pulled together, all led by the national aerospace giant, Korea Aerospace Industries, or KAI. The government knew it couldn't do it completely alone, so it brought in Indonesia as a junior partner to share some of the costs, though that relationship has been a bit of a roller coaster. The philosophy behind the KF-X was fundamentally different from the American approach. The F-35 was a cost-is-no-object mission to create the absolute pinnacle of fifth-gen stealth technology. South Korea, on the other hand, was pragmatic. They aimed for a 4.5 generation jet, a platform that would hit the sweet spot between older planes and the bleeding edge and often wildly expensive F-35. The goal was an aircraft that was advanced enough for today's threats, but also affordable to buy in large numbers and, critically, cheap to operate. It needed to be a workhorse, not a hangar queen. After years of design, testing, and tense negotiations for sensitive tech, the world finally saw the result. In April 2021, the first prototype of the newly named KF-21 Boramae was rolled out. It was a stunning machine with the sleek, angular look of a modern stealth fighter. Then, on July 19, 2022, it roared into the sky for its first flight, a 33-minute trip that marked the triumphant result of 2 decades of national ambition. For South Korea, this was more than a test flight. It was a signal to the world that it was no longer just a buyer of defense tech, but a creator. The Boramae wasn't just hardware. It was the embodiment of a nation's will to forge its own path. At first glance, the KF-21 Boramae looks a lot like an American 5th-gen fighter, especially the F-22 Raptor. It's got that same general shape, the tilted twin tails, and the blended wing body design that scream stealth. But this is where things get interesting, and where the genius of the South Korean strategy really shows. The KF-21 isn't trying to be an F-35 clone. It's a calculated balancing act of performance, cost, and capability, built for a different kind of fight. Let's start with the big one, stealth. The F-35 is a true, very low observable jet. It achieves its ghost-like ability to dodge radar with exotic materials, special radar-absorbent coatings, and, crucially, internal weapons bays that hide its bombs and missiles. Its radar signature is famously compared to the size of a metal golf ball. The KF-21 takes a more practical route. The initial production version, called Block Y, is best described as semi-stealth. It uses a lot of stealthy design tricks, like its shape and panel alignment, to scatter radar energy. Its radar signature is way smaller than older fighters like the F-16. However, and this is a big deal, the Block I and II versions carry their weapons on 10 external hardpoints under the wings and body. That's a major trade-off. It lets the KF-21 carry a bigger and more diverse payload than the F-35's internal bay, but it also makes it much easier to spot on radar. So why do it? The answer is cost and time. Designing and integrating internal weapons bays is incredibly difficult and expensive. By going with external weapons first, South Korea got the jet from concept to production much faster and cheaper. The plan is evolutionary. The future Block 3 variant is designed to have internal bays, turning it into a true 5th-gen platform. For now, the KF-21 trades the F-35's first day of war, deep strike stealth for payload flexibility and affordability. Now let's look under the hood at the jet's brain. This is where the KF-21 really starts to shine. It's equipped with a cutting-edge active electronically scanned array, AESA, radar, developed right in South Korea by Hanwha Systems. Unlike old radars that have to physically point a dish at a target, an AESA radar can scan huge areas of sky almost instantly, track multiple targets in different directions, and even act as an electronic warfare jammer, all at the same time. It gives the pilot God-tier situational awareness. On top of that, it has an infrared search and track (IRST) system, letting it hunt for enemies passively by tracking their heat signatures, a killer feature for finding stealth aircraft that still pump out heat. But the single most important part of the KF-21's electronics is its open architecture. The F-35 software is a notoriously closed system, a walled garden, controlled by Lockheed Martin and the U.S. government. If you operate an F-35 and want to add a new, non-U.S. missile, get ready for a decade-long billion-dollar headache. South Korea wanted nothing to do with that. The KF-21 was designed from day one with an open architecture mission computer. This is a complete game changer. It means South Korea, or any country that buys it, can easily integrate their own weapons, sensors, and electronics. It gives them total sovereign control over the jet's capabilities, free from a foreign veto. This flexibility is arguably one of the KF-21's most powerful advantages. In terms of raw power, the KF-21 is a beast, while the F-35 uses a single monstrously powerful Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine. The Boramae is a twin-engine fighter. It's powered by two General Electric F414 engines, the same reliable combat-proven engine used in the U.S. Navy's F/A-18 Super Hornet. This gives it a few key advantages. First, redundancy. If one engine gets hit, the other can get you home. Second, it provides incredible power. With both afterburners lit, the KF-21 can hit a top speed of Mach 1.81 or over 2,200 kilometers per hour. That's significantly faster than the F-35's top speed of Mach 1.6. This extra speed and acceleration give the Boramae an edge in pure performance, letting it control the fight, chase down enemies, or get out of trouble fast. Finally, let's talk about what it carries. The KF-21 is a true multi-role fighter. For air-to-air combat, it's being armed with some of the best missiles out there, including the long-range Meteor missile, widely seen as the best in its class, and the IRIS-T for close-in dogfights. The first Block I jets being delivered in 2026 are focused on air superiority. The Block II versions, starting in 2028, will unlock its full potential by adding a huge range of air-to-ground weapons, letting it strike land targets and enemy ships. It's a smart, step-by-step path to full combat capability. Alright, so this is the big question, isn't it? How does the South Korean challenger really stack up against the American champ? This isn't a simple case of which jet is better. It's about which tool is right for the job, and the answer comes down to the mission, the strategy, and the budget. The KF-21 and F-35 are two different philosophies of air power. Let's start with the obvious, stealth versus speed. The F-35 is the undisputed king of stealth. Its whole purpose is to slip deep into heavily defended enemy territory completely undetected, taking out air defenses and command centers on the first day of a war. Its motto is, first look, first shot, first kill. It's designed to see the enemy long before the enemy has a clue it's there. The KF-21, in its current form, just can't compete on that level. With weapons hanging off its wings, its radar signature, while reduced, is still big enough for modern radars to pick up. But what it gives up in ultimate stealth, it makes up for in raw kinetic performance. The Boramae is simply faster and more energetic. Its twin engines give it better acceleration and a higher top speed. In a missile fight, a KF-21 could fire its weapons and then use its speed to get out of the enemy's range, reposition, and attack again. And in a classic dogfight, its higher power would likely give it an edge over the F-35, which was built for stealthy ambushes, not for turning and burning in a phone booth. Next, let's talk about the one thing that governments care about most, cost. And here, the story gets complicated. There was some buzz when the first KF-21 contract came out at around $83 million per jet, which was surprisingly close to an F-35A's flyaway cost, which is now around $80 million. People asked, why pay stealth prices for a semi-stealth fighter? But that's a misleading comparison. The F-35's price is low because they've built over 1,000 of them, creating massive economies of scale. The KF-21's initial price is high because it's covering the enormous startup costs of a brand new production line. The real difference, and the KF-21's killer advantage, is the operational cost. The F-35 is notoriously expensive to fly. Its stealth coatings need special climate-controlled hangars and are a pain to maintain. The cost to fly an F-35 for 1 hour is often over $35,000. The KF-21, meanwhile, was designed from day one to be easy to maintain. It uses those super reliable GE F414 engines, which have a massive global supply chain already in place. It's designed so ground crews can get to things easily. The target operating cost is expected to be way lower, maybe around $20,000 to $25,000 per hour. Over the 30-year life of a jet, that adds up to hundreds of millions of dollars in savings per plane. For many countries, that means they can afford to buy more jets and, more importantly, fly them more often. This brings us to the third big difference: logistics and autonomy. When you buy an F-35, you're not just buying a plane, you're plugging into a global American-managed supply chain. Parts, maintenance, upgrades, it's all run through a network controlled by the US. This is great in peacetime, but it's a strategic leash. South Korea learned this firsthand and wanted out. For its initial production, the KF-21 has achieved an incredible 65% localization rate. That means 2/3 of the jet is made with South Korean parts from South Korean companies. In a war, the ROCAF won't have to wait for a C-17 to fly in from America with a spare part. They can get it from a factory down the road. That level of self-sufficiency is a kind of strategic freedom very few nations have. In the end, this comparison reveals a clear choice. The F-35 is a specialized, deep-strike stealth asset. It's the scalpel. The KF-21 is a versatile, cost-effective, and sovereign combat workhorse. It's the sword. For South Korea, the smart answer wasn't to pick one. The ROCAF is buying both. They'll use them together. The F-35s will handle the most dangerous missions, kicking down the door, while a larger fleet of KF-21s will control the skies, defend their territory, and conduct follow-up strikes. It's a layered defense that will make the ROCAF one of the most formidable air forces in the world. The KF-21 Boramae was born from a Korean need, but its ambitions are absolutely global. South Korea didn't pour billions into this project just for itself. It did it to become a major player in the international fighter market, a space long dominated by the US, Russia, and Europe. And as the Boramae shifts from a development project to a production reality, the world is paying attention. The KF-21 is hitting the market at the perfect moment. For decades, the choices were simple: buy expensive, top-tier Western jets or cheaper, less capable Russian or Chinese ones. The F-35 shook things up, but its high cost and the political strings attached created a huge gap in the market. A lot of nations want a modern fighter, but can't stomach the F-35's price tag or the dependency that comes with it. This is the exact niche the KF-21 was designed to fill. It offers 4.5 Gen capabilities, AESA radar, advanced weapons, semi-stealth, at a much lower lifecycle cost and with the promise of sovereign control. International interest is already heating up. Defense ministers from several nations have visited South Korea to check out the jet. Indonesia, despite its shaky financial history with the program, is still a partner and seems to be nearing a deal for its first batch. But the real focus for the first big export contract is the Philippines. KAI has publicly named the Philippines as its priority target, aiming to secure a deal soon. For the Philippine Air Force, which already flies KAI's lighter FA-50, the KF-21 would be a massive generational leap, giving it a credible fighter to patrol its vast maritime borders. Other potential customers are popping up in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and even Eastern Europe. Poland, which has already bought tons of South Korean tanks and artillery, has shown interest. The UAE is also reportedly in talks. For these countries, the KF-21's open architecture is a huge selling point, letting them plug in their own weapons and systems without having to throw away all their previous investments. So, let's circle back to the central question. Does the South Korean KF-21 Boramae truly challenge the F-35? The verdict is a clear but qualified yes. The KF-21 does not challenge the F-35 for the title of the world's stealthiest fighter. It is not an F-35 killer in a deep strike mission. To even frame it that way is to miss the point of the Boramae entirely. Where the KF-21 challenges the F-35 is in its dominance of the market. It challenges the idea that there's only one way to get a modern air force. It proves that a country can get incredible capability without the extreme costs and strategic baggage of the F-35 program. It challenges the F-35 on economics. By focusing on reliability and lower flight costs, the KF-21 lets an air force fly more, train its pilots better, and maintain a higher state of readiness for the same budget. It challenges the F-35 on strategic freedom. By offering an open architecture and domestic production, it gives nations real ownership over their defense. And finally, it challenges the F-35 by creating a whole new category. It's the Goldilocks fighter, not as stealthy as a 5th-gen jet, but way more advanced than a 4th-gen, all delivered at a price and operating cost that makes it a realistic option for a much wider range of countries. The KF-21 Boramae is more than just a plane. It's a strategic masterstroke. It marks South Korea's graduation from a tech consumer to a premier producer. It has fundamentally changed the global fighter jet market by providing a credible, affordable, and sovereign alternative. While the F-35 might remain the king of stealth, the KF-21 Boramae has proven there's more than one way to rule the skies. The story of the KF-21 is really just getting started. With the first jets heading to the ROCAF in 2026 and export deals on the horizon, the Boramae is just beginning to spread its wings. Future versions, like the fully stealthed Block 3 and a proposed electronic attack variant, promise to make it even more capable. This jet is a powerful symbol of a changing world, where determined middle powers can build their own influence, independent of the superpowers. It's a lesson in smart design, strategic patience, and national will. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the KF-21's mix of speed, versatility, and lower cost is a winning formula? Or will the F-35's pure stealth and sensor fusion always give it the ultimate edge? Let me know what you think in the comments below. The debates and insights from this community are always the best part. If you found this breakdown interesting and want to see more content on the tech, strategy, and geopolitics of military aviation, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing. It really does make a huge difference and lets us keep making these deep dives. Thanks for watching.